Jam. Here I go. I have a message today. I am going to explain to you how I got this message, but it's kind of piggybacking off of the last message. The Lord has this topic on me and won't let it go. So I'm going to speak about it having to do with not necessarily forgiveness, but the vengeance part, the feeling like you want to retaliate part of somebody. Somebody need to hear this, y'all. So it may not be you, and it may not be you today, but pin this in the back of your mind if you sit and listen to it. So it was a combination of different things. Some of it had to do with a dream that I had. Some of it had to do with the recent conversation that I had with a friend of mine. Some of it had to do with me being awakened last night and what was on my TV. I just paid attention to it. And kind of like to go with that dream, there was a phrase that I heard. And the phrase was, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Okay. We know that's not biblical, but we all know that that's something that we've always heard. I want to say it came from the Godfather. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, so the combination of things brought forth this, and I got some revelation a little while after church that, this is supposed to be a message. So here I go. Once again, I'm just flowing with what I was giving, since I'm not able to take the notes like that anymore. But so I'll start with the dream. The dream had to do with, and then again, keep in mind, if you haven't seen the last video, I want to say the last 2 videos, I made mention of this, having to do with, failing relationships between people, not always romantic, but relationships nonetheless, that maybe offense was made, maybe something wrong occurred, someone wronged another person, and sometimes it can be tempting to feel like you want to wish something bad to happen if someone hurt you bad enough. And we all know that that's not of God to have those thoughts and those feelings. But the question is, well, what do you do with those feelings if they come up? What do you do to resist having those feelings? And hearing words like this can remind you of where your heart posture needs to be for someone who has hurt you or wronged you in any kind of way. And the basis of this is the Lord knows that people do things like this to one another. The Lord also equips us, y'all. He knows that stuff like this is going to occur. He equips us by allowing, his word to speak, whether it be through the Bible, through scripture, through a story example in the Bible, through a vessel that he's using to speak, through any person, place, or thing. He can make sure that we get the message that we need to get about feeling this way so that we can give it to him and ultimately move forward. So what I want to say about the dream, again, I'm not going to explain everything that happened in the dream, but the key parts that I took from this was, I'm still trying to figure out some of the parts of this dream, but I know what I got as a theme from it, what I took from it. There were some ladies who had done something terrible, and it was me and a guy and another lady. I was like managing them, another group of girls. And so the girls that were the ops, basically, or the enemies in the house, we were all in the house. The enemies were like scared to come out because they know that we were coming to get them. And what does get mean? I don't know. They were scared though. Okay. So we were coming after them. And at some point, the guy that I was with had the phone number of one of the girls, the ones that, the ops. He had the phone number of her, and they were texting each other. And then she was like, this is so bad. Everything is so bad. I want to myself. I feel so bad, and I feel like that's the only way out. And he texted her and said to her, basically, that's not the way out. May the peace of the Lord be with you. Even though the girl, I don't know why we were trying to get them, but obviously she had done something foul. And so he was the one that she had did something foul too. But at the end of the day, even though she was the one who was wrong in the situation, the circumstances developed to where she started feeling sorry for herself. I don't know, the self-pity, whatever I want to call it. She was like, my best response to all of this mess is to just exit. And his response was compassion. His response wasn't relenting in, the stance of you are wrong and this is wrong, and I feel how I feel though, but may God be with you. That's not the way out. That's not the correct way out. So like his heart was to feel like, you know what, let me mention to her about God. Apparently she ain't cared about God before, but let me just mention to her about God. And hopefully that can redirect her thoughts. But the consequences of whatever's coming is still the consequences. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has divine consequences. Everybody has natural consequences for their action. It is what happens next. Some consequences you can avoid and some you can't. Some consequences you can repent from and then the circumstances change, and some you can't. You just have to go through and telling yourself that you're going to have your own way out. You're going to figure out your own way out so that you won't have to face and live through the consequences is whack. It just is. Like, you did what you did. And I don't mean to make this to sound harsh, but you live through. And a lot of times that is where reformation takes place. When you are put in a circumstance that feels bad because of something that you've done, when you actually go through it, and especially if you go through that thing with God, you find God in it, or you find God before you go through it, you live and you learn. And you are able to grab everything. This is the part of the Lord making something bad turn out for his good, for his glory, and for the good of everybody involved, and cause of his purpose. That Romans 8:28 of it all is that you go through that, whatever it is, and the Lord redeems the situation. He redeems the person when the person decides to surrender themselves unto him through it. So no, it's not about creating your own exit route. It's about, hey, I did this, I put myself in this situation, hopefully I can find the Lord in this and he turn this thing around and make it good at the end of it. But I'm gonna have to face this. And so, like, if you're giving anybody advice of something that they're going through, they may not want to reap what they've sown, and they start having ideation, just know that's the enemy. He want to take us out without repentance. That's all that is. But bring God to them. Don't try to pacify them. Don't try to tell them everything is going to be great, because it may not be great at first. That's giving somebody a false sense of security and hope, a false sense of being able to avoid consequences. But let them know that if they turn to the Father, everything is going to be all right, and more than all right. Okay, so the text message said, well, may the Lord, that's not the way to go, but may the Lord be with you through this. And so that was one thing. All right, so that was a dream. And some other stuff that happened a couple of days ago. So when I got up and I was getting ready to go to church this morning, just thoughts. I was just having thoughts, my quiet time. I do believe that the Lord be bringing me these thoughts and helping me sort some things out, helping me remember some things. And it wasn't until after church that I understood why I had to remember that stuff. But again, the Lord is sovereign. He does what he does when he does it, and brings it all together when it's time to bring it all together. So I had remembered a conversation I had with my friend maybe about 2 or 3 days ago, where it was within a week, okay, where I have an ex-friend, someone I'm not friends with anymore. Before this whole journey popped off, the Lord removed that person from my life with no explanation, with no conversation. She just dipped. This was somebody who was supposedly my best friend. So the timeline, this happened at the very beginning of my divorce season. So what seemed like the worst possible time for that happened. But at the same time, in retrospect, I understood why it had to happen in that way and why it had to happen at that time. But so someone who was a friend of one of my best friends dipped on me, and I didn't understand why. I didn't understand nothing, but I just understood that our friendship was done, and there wasn't gonna be no coming back from anything. I'm not saying that she tried to come back, but I understood in a moment that if she did try to come back, it wasn't gonna happen because of how that was done. I'll just leave that at that. But one of my current just best friends, me and her were speaking about the ex-friend, because the ex-friend started going to her church, and I was like, wow, because I said, you know what, that is something. Because I used to have a lot of friends. I used to have a lot of close friends and best friends previously. And out of all of them, this particular friend never talked about church. I didn't feel comfortable talking about God with her. My only friend, y'all. I did not feel comfortable discussing God with her, because, like, you can tell who on that type of time, because they show it. What's in your heart comes out. And the fact that that particular friend never used to talk about church, barely used to mention God. Like, it wasn't a part of her, a part of what comes out of her. I never felt comfortable having it come out of me around her. So there were times when I would invite my friends to church with me for different reasons or whatever. Or maybe I wanted to go to a gospel concert, or maybe I just wanted to talk about something the Lord is doing. You know, any conversations about faith and all of that, I would just not have those conversations with her. I would not include her because I just genuinely thought she wouldn't be interested, because she never showed any interest. And this is somebody who, like, I knew her parents had a foundation in Christ. So I just felt like she just decided to go her own way, and that was okay. But she was my friend, and I loved her, and I accepted her how she was. So in saying that, fast forward to now, this is 2.5 years after we ended our friendship. My current friend says that she goes to her church, and I'm just like, wow, look at what God has done. What I had to do, because I told you guys my serious faith walk, my surrender near the last quarter of 2024, one of the first things the Lord had me do was forgive. He had me forgive everybody I was holding in my heart something against. He even, a couple months later, pulled out some more. He's like, oh, well, you forgot about this. I had to sit down and think about it. Like, who am I still holding something against? And I had to write it down. I had to release it. I had to give it to the Lord. I had to invite him in to clean whatever I was feeling up out of me. I had to face what I felt and why I felt it, and then ask the Lord to help me. Okay, but in all of that, she was one of the people who I knew I was still holding something against. And she was one of the first round of people. So I would say, yeah, during the last quarter of 2024. And he had continued working on me with her over the next few months. I was running into her all the time, which could be awkward, but I'm somebody who, like, I never considered myself a grudge holder. So I'm cordial. I'll speak to you, you know, whatever. Like, it was just those type of situations that he was making sure I wasn't holding no bitterness in with her. I was having to constantly be in the midst of her. I was having to be reminded of her in different ways. People would come and report and tell me. I had a high school reunion and she was there, and just, it was a lot. But this is sovereign God. You know, he knew why I had to be faced with that. He knew that I asked to be cleaned up about it, and he wanted me to put my money where my mouth was at and show me, like, you know, I'm helping you do this. You're going to realize when you don't have nothing against her anymore, when you can pray for her sincerely. And I did. I asked the Lord to give me the words. One day, I don't remember what I was doing. I just knew I had to pray for her. This was maybe like a year ago. It was probably more than a year ago. But I just knew I had to pray for her. And I'm like, okay, Lord, you're telling me to pray for her. Well, give me the words, because I don't know what to say. And I wanted to pray for her, but again, I didn't know what to say. And my prayer was that she found him. The words that he put on my heart to say was that she would find him. And she would develop her own relationship with him. And she would come to salvation. During this time too, like at my church, the pastor was having us, you know, during our prayer time at the beginning of the service, was having us make these slips of write down people's names of who we would like to see come to salvation and leave it on the altar. I put her name on one of them slips. Like, I sincerely wanted her to find Jesus. If not for her, for them kids, for her family. Yes, for her, but for all of them. And again, when my friend was telling me about her going to her church, at first I didn't think nothing of it, but it dawned on me. I'm like, I prayed for her to find Jesus. I'm not taking credit for it. The Lord told me to do it. But at the same time, I'm just trying to illustrate to you what he brought back to my remembrance this morning. That whole conversation about that. And our heart posture that we need to have when we feel like someone has wronged us, we got to let it go, and we got to give it to him, and we got to ask the Lord what to do with it. And we have to have the heart for these people, for us to want these people to find him. And I'm not going to say I don't be kind of like fighting with it a little bit, because not because I don't have a heart for it, it's the awkwardness sometimes. Because a few months ago, her parents attend my church. Her parent does still. And on the prayer request on the screen, her mom's name was on it. And I was like, oh man, I don't know what's going on with her. I mean, but I knew I wanted to pray for her mother. So I prayed for her mom, and the Lord was like, tell her. I was like, what? I was like, what? What? He was like, he told me to tell her that I prayed for her mom, and that I didn't need to know what was going on. I'm not asking, I'm not fishing anything, but I just wanted her to know that her mother was in my prayers. And I did that, and I said that. I just was obedient, and I was just like, okay, Lord. Again, it's not that any bitterness was involved where I didn't want to say something to her, but it was just, it's awkwardness. It is awkward. If nothing else, it's awkward. And it's me opening up communication to somebody that I know is in my past. And then that's a little uncomfortable. Like, I didn't want to continue conversation, and it didn't. You know, she told me thank you, and that's that. So yeah, sometimes things happen, and the Lord wants you to remember that He's the one who is in control of everything. But the next part of what is bringing this message together, because that was the phrase, remember, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. That's what I woke up with. Oh, I can't forget this part. So last night, my show that I went to sleep on was Living Single, but at some point throughout the night, I had changed it to SpongeBob. I had some reflux going on last night. Those people who know what that reflux be about, Lord, I'm finna pray for all of us, because reflux woke me up. And at that time, I changed the channel. I believe it was at the time I changed it to SpongeBob. Okay, so I went back to sleep. Then the Lord woke me up. Like, I was awake. I'm a good sleeper, y'all. I can wake up, I can do a crossword puzzle, I can go and take a shower, I can go drive my child to school, I can wake up and do things, and then decide that I want to go back to sleep, and then I'm gonna go back to sleep. So it's not that the Lord will wake me up and then I can't go back to sleep. I know when the Lord wants me to pay attention to something, because He'll wake me up and I won't feel like I want to go back to sleep. I'll just be up. I'm like, okay, Lord, what we doing? Are we praying? Like, you want me to pay attention to this TV? And yes, it was just one episode, and then I went back to sleep. It was Squidward wanting to learn how to do karate, because there was a guy in the alley that he thought was trying to mug him, and he wanted to defend himself. So he went to SpongeBob and went to Sandy, and they taught him karate. But what did they keep repeating? They kept repeating and telling him, like, we're not teaching you this karate. You can't learn this karate until you learn that this is not about revenge. It's about protection. It's not about revenge. It's about protection. That was the theme of the whole episode. And it wasn't until Squidward decided, okay, I'm not going to do this for revenge. I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn to protect myself, that he started learning it. But then what did he do? As soon as he learned it and got good enough, he switched his mind back and was like, oh, I'm finna go get revenge. So he went back to the alley, and then the guy wasn't even trying to mug him. I don't know why he was being real creepy, though, in the first place. But the second time he went to the alley, the guy was trying to return his groceries, but Squidward beat the mess out of him, and then he got arrested. So I saw the episode and I went to sleep, y'all. Again, it's just crazy how all this stuff comes together the next day. But so when I was thinking about the dream and like all of that, I remembered seeing that episode of SpongeBob last night, and I was like, oh, okay. Then it started making me think about prayer. So when I had Googled about keeping your friends close and your enemies closer, it made me think of, I was like, you know what? Are there any scriptures I can look at that have to do with how do we interact with our enemies? And part of Psalms 23 came up. The Lord will prepare a table for you in the presence of your enemies. So I sat and I thought about that for a while. Another thing that came up was the fact about how the Lord sent an evil spirit to King Saul, to get things cracking with David. Because if you know the story about Saul and David, the Lord never wanted Saul to be king. The people wanted Saul to be king, but it was in the Lord's perfect will that David would be king, right? The Lord gave the people what they wanted for a time, but now it was time for Saul to be put up out of there and David to be king. Like, the Lord was ready for circumstances to change so that the king that was supposed to be in place would be in place. So the Lord sent an evil spirit to Saul. As you may know, they went through this whole thing of Saul trying his best to kill David. Saul was jealous of David, and yeah, it was this whole thing. But ultimately what ended up happening is Saul ended up falling on his own sword, and Saul ended up passing away. David was the new king. But the thing to think about was that David was with God. David was submitted under God the whole time. David was meant to be the rightful king, but Saul was in his place. And there was times when Saul was trying to kill David that David could have killed him, but he didn't. He chose to do what God wanted him to do. Then that made me think about the prayers of David, not concerning Saul specifically, but also concerning Saul. But you know, in Psalms, David's prayers are there, and one of some of David's prayers be kind of crazy, like the way he be asking the Lord to do to his enemies. But then all of that made me think again about, okay, vengeance is the Lord's, and it made me think about Squidward. So here's the thing. David used to pray for his enemies to be taken up out of there, like asking God to be his vengeance, asking God to retaliate on his behalf. Some people may feel comfortable about that, because it's like, oh, we shouldn't be praying for the Lord to do bad things to people. But it's in our Bible. The Lord knows that we use the Bible for reference to how we should go about things, for examples of what's acceptable, especially when prayers and things are listed in the Bible. So here's what I understood from all of that. There's an enemy, and sometimes there's just somebody you don't like. Sometimes it's somebody you don't get along with. Those two things are very different. You don't pray for the Lord to avenge you against somebody that you just are out of, are at odds with. An enemy is somebody who is proactively trying to defeat you. Someone who is actually coming against you. An enemy has already determined and made their mind up and took their stance against you. Okay? Let me start by saying people who are actually submitted under God don't have those feelings in them. They love other people. They have compassion upon other people. So I would never see two actual Christians being in this situation. If you have a one person deciding, hey, I don't like this person for whatever reason, I'm about to do this and this and that to them, or I want to treat them this way, I want harm to come upon them, I want misfortune to come upon them, I have bad thoughts about them, I want bad things to happen to them. You decided, person that's not submitted under God, not a real Christian, none of that you are proactively targeting somebody to do harm to them. It is okay for you to defend yourself. Person of God can then ask the Lord to fight for you, to protect you, to defeat your enemy as defense. Not as retaliation for somebody that's not bothering you. As defense to protect you from whatever it is that they are planning, plotting, and trying to do. And that's the difference. That is why it is acceptable for David to pray to God to annihilate his enemies. I'm going to put an example of one of his prayers right here. So understanding the difference can help you check your heart posture. Lord, am I wrong for having these thoughts of wanting you to help me prevail against them? Well, someone coming after you makes you the person who is needing to defend themselves. And if the Lord doesn't want the vengeance to be yours, it is his job to defend you. It is okay for you to pray for the Lord to defend you against somebody. Back to the 23rd Psalm Revelation. The Lord will prepare a table for you in front of your enemies. So remember that. As long as your heart is right, he will not only avenge you, he would propel you over them and make them watch. How about that? How about that? That's the kind of Lord you serve. A Lord that's going to ride for you. A Lord that is going to ride for you. As long as you are doing what you're supposed to be doing to stay right with him. So to end up this message, I just want you guys to remember whose team you're on, where your heart needs to be, the compassion. If someone's coming against you, you can pray for the Lord to protect and defend you from them. If someone maybe done something in the past, they've had a change of heart, they're not coming against you, they're not doing anything harmful towards you, you can let it go. You can allow the Lord to do whatever he's going to do in that situation. You don't be the cause of your misfortune, and you don't be the cause of the Lord turning his hand on you. Okay? Make sure your hands are clean. And in everything, know that if people come against you that you never expected to come against you or betray you or to do something wrong to you, it may be that the Lord needed that to happen so that his sovereign will be fulfilled. Something bad that you may think is bad might have happened for your Romans 8:28, so that the Lord can reorchestrate things, realign things to where that he needs them to be, and place people in the places where they're supposed to be. All right, that's all I got for this message, y'all. Bye-bye.